Hello, and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about some of the new features that Gmail just rolled out. Some of them are good. One particular one is not so great, but for the most part, they're really nice changes, and I think they'll be very useful. And also, I'm going to go into some other Gmail-related activities that you may or may not know, but they're certainly useful and helpful in using them daily, basically, for both personal and business uses. So let's roll up our sleeves here and let's get going. I'm going to share the screen with you so you can see what I'm doing, and we'll get started. Okay, so the big thing that they just recently rolled out is the ability to right-click on any message and get a bigger menu. So if we click on an email, we get the email right there. But if we right-click, instead of having just a short menu that shows a couple of options, now we have all these other options. So first I'm going to walk through them. They're pretty trivial, but for those that don't know, they will know what it is. So the first option, as you can see, there is reply. If you click that, it'll come up with a reply window, and you're able to type and reply right there, which is handy. The second option is reply all, which is essentially the same thing. If your email message that you're looking at went to a bunch of people, then you can reply to all of them at the same time if your message came from a bunch of people, I meant to say. So it's essentially the same thing. Reply to one person or reply to everybody who send you the message. The third option is to forward the message. So you click on that. It comes up with an interface asking you to enter who you want to send the message to. You can easily add CC and BCC members, which are just copies, or blind carbon copies, as they call them, meaning you can send email messages to people where you don't want them to see who you send the email to. So that's where you would use BCC. Pretty much everybody knows it now. And CC is just a carbon copy, just a copy of the message to go to multiple people. And of course, you can always type in multiple emails right here in the to field, and it'll get to all these people too. One of the options when you forward messages, one of the things I always recommend is to click on the pull-down menu here and select Edit Subject. That's something that will go into full screen, which makes it a little bit easier to edit, number one. Number two, it jumps right to the subject line, which you can then change. As you can see, when you forward messages, it adds the prefix FWD : and then the subject of the message. A lot of times you don't really want that to go with your message, so I just usually erase that part from the subject, and then I also erase the top part, which is basically the header information from the previous message. And so that way I'm forwarding just the content itself. It's certainly not mandatory, but it's something I recommend, and something I always do when I forward messages to make it a little bit cleaner. If you don't do this when you forward, in other words, if you don't select pull down edit subject, as you can see, there is no subject line here. So the message will go out with this subject line that says FWD : and the subject line. And even if you edit this header information here and get it out, the subject will still be with FWD. So the only way to change it and make it just be the subject, whatever you want it to be edited, then you select the pull down, and then you select Edit Subject, and that's how you take care of that. So definitely something I'd recommend. Okay, the next option we have is Archive, which takes email message you're currently on and archives it so it goes out of the inbox into Archive folder, and then you can pull it up by search, and you can go to Archive folder, pull it up there as well. When you do a search, you can type in whatever your criteria is, and you can type in anywhere, and that will look everywhere, including Archive. So it's just a way to get it out of the inbox so it doesn't sit sticking in your face, basically. So it's kind of, think of it as deleting a message without actually getting rid of it. So that's what Archive does. Delete, and of course you can bring the messages from Archive back into the inbox if you wish to do so. Delete is deleting messages, goes into trash folder, meaning it doesn't delete them either. So Archive doesn't delete messages, nor does delete. But the difference is in 30 days, if you don't do anything, the delete folder gets emptied. So it just keeps constantly rolling and rolling and rolling until for 30 days, and then after 30 days, the trash folder gets emptied. So it's going to be permanently gone. So initially, don't be alarmed if you delete a message. Number one, you can always do the undo by clicking on the undo button at the bottom of the screen after deleting it. So let's do that. So I click delete. See, it says conversation moved to trash, and I can click on undo, and it'll come right back. So you can undo this way. Another way you can undo something is if I hit delete key, which doesn't work. You need to hit the shift 3 to delete. It says conversation moved to trash. At this point, what I can do is I can just hit the Z key. Unfortunately, as much as I try to do, even though you can change the keyboard shortcuts, which is something I'm going to cover partially here shortly, they don't allow you to set up Control-Z, which is what I really wanted to do, because most of the other applications out there, at least in the PC world, use Control-Z as the undo. Nobody uses Z by itself. Everybody uses Control-Z. And I don't know why Google did what they did the way they did it, but I could not make it work with Control-Z at all. So the only thing you can do is use the Z key to do the undo, or you can click on the undo button. Either way, it'll work. Just keep in mind that if you do not click on undo or select undo using the keyboard after a certain number of seconds, which I think is either 5 or 10, I'm not sure what they said, I think it's like 5 seconds, then it'll just go away and that's it. Now you cannot undo it anymore. So you have to do it relatively quickly when you want to do something like that. Okay, the next option is mark as read. So if I click on that, it's going to make you can see it makes it look like it's been read. So it's not bolded anymore. And it's still there, as you can see it right there, but it's not bolded anymore. So that's how you can make things unread. And then, make messages or conversation be read. And you can also, if you pull down the menu, right click again, you can see it says mark as unread. So you can easily change it back to be unread. Keep in mind that all of these options I'm showing you, all these options they added to this right click menu, they're all available and were available up here. So there's really nothing new in this section so far that they've shown you that you can't do by just clicking on the button at the top. You know, we have a reply. Well, reply is usually part of the email itself, so you can have reply here. But then if you look at reply all, it's next to it, forward next to it. Archive, delete, mark as read, snooze are all up here. You know, there is the archive right here. There is the spam, report spam, there's the delete, there is mark as read, and there is the snooze option. So all of those are there. Move to and label are right next to them. So essentially you can see it's pretty much combination of various things. Like if I wanted to mute, you have to pull down this menu to select the mute option. Here they put it in to be part of the right click. So essentially it's a combination of a bunch of other options you had in various areas. They put them all in the right click menu, which is useful. No question about it, it's useful. It's not, you know, earth-shattering or mind-blowing or anything like that, but it is useful. Okay, so then we move on. Mark as read. We move on to snooze. And for those that used Inbox and loved it, that's one of the big things about Inbox that used to be that Gmail didn't used to have. Now they have it too, and you can see that you can snooze message till later today, tomorrow, this week, next week. You know, different options, weekend, and then you can pick date and time whenever you want to do it. So you can select any date and time you want to snooze it at. And then if I, for example, if I take this message and if I snooze it, and I say I want to snooze it until, say, tomorrow, well, it doesn't matter when, let's say later today, it's going to disappear from my inbox and it's going to go into my snoozed area. So in other words, it's going to stay in the snoozed area and then come back to the inbox again at 9 o'clock tonight. If I set it today, or tomorrow? Tonight, yeah. So 9 p.m. tonight. So you can see when I click on snooze, I can see this message is going to be shown to me at 9 p.m. So at 9 p.m. sharp today is going to definitely come back to my inbox, and then I can do whatever I want to do with it. So that's the snooze option for those that didn't know. Next option is move to, which is very similar to label as. It's essentially the same thing. Difference being when you say label as, you can assign one or more labels of your choice. You can create as many labels as you want, and then that message will become labeled. It'll become label will be assigned to that message. So, for example, I have it right now, as you can see, checkbox promotions. I can go ahead and I can also label it as, we'll label it as, I don't know, we're going to label it as Acme People Search, I don't care, something, okay? So I'm going to label it as that, so now we have two checkboxes. And if you look here at this message, that doesn't show it. Why doesn't it show it? Let's me try one of my labels. Try backup. You know, I'm not sure it's working, to be honest with you. Back. Okay, so it appears that they have a bug. Double check one more time. So if I go and select backup, and select, okay, you need to click on apply. There we go, that was no problem. Okay, so basically the way it works is you actually have to, I thought you can just click on the label and that's it. You can't. The way it works is if you go to labels and you go to like AdWords, oh, that did it. This is really strange. Okay, let's take back what I said before. Yeah, no, it seems to be weird. It didn't work before. Now it's working. Very strange. Let's try another one. Let's try this one and do the label and assign label 2004. Yeah, weird. Okay, so it's not. It's a little glitchy, seemingly, but now it seems to work. So you should be able to just. That's what I thought. You should be able to just click on a label and then it assigns that label to the message, and you can easily, by clicking on the message, each label has a little X next to it, so you can easily remove whichever labels you don't need or don't want by clicking on these X's, and just get rid of these so we don't mislabel things. That's what label does, and then move to does exactly the same thing. It assigns a label, but it only basically assigns a particular label, and it removes it. You know, it moves the message from the inbox to that label. So if I wanted to go back to my bank, for example, and if I click on move to bank, now this message is gone here. As you can see, it just disappeared. And if I click on bank, then there it is right there. Okay, so the bottom line is that if you wanted to take a message and think of it as inbox bundles that they used to have, it's the same kind of concept what this is, what the move to is. So you're able to move a message into a particular quote unquote bundle, which is nothing more than a label. And then, and by the way, in inbox, it was also nothing more than labels. They just called it bundles, but essentially they were pretty much labels. And that way you're able to say that, you know, I'm putting the message in this particular, under this particular label, but it's only going to be in there. It's not going to be in the inbox anymore. And then, of course, you can find it that way. So it's a way to segregate email to be able to have messages with multiple labels, you know. So think of it as having, if you're coming from the PC world, Outlook world, think of it as having Microsoft Office, I should say, world, having your multiple folders and being able to have one message in multiple folders at the same time. That's what labels do. And then moving, when you move something, then you can move it directly to that also folder, and that way it stays in that folder out of the inbox and just in that folder. So the moral basically here is this, that if you want to assign a message to multiple categories or multiple labels, in our case, then you use the label approach. If you want to take a message and move it into some kind of storage area for later retrieval out of the inbox, then you just create a label called whatever you want to call it, dead storage or something, and then you just do the move to in there to get it done in one selection, basically. So that's what that does. And the only other things we have, let's see what else we got here. The next option is mute. That's when you get emails from usually forums or groups like Google groups, and you have a bunch of people in the conversation. Then people start responding, and you keep getting all these emails, saying this guy said this and that woman said that. And so at that point, it just becomes a little bit hard to manage. So you can just click on mute, so it won't be showing you all the different changes that are coming up from that particular group or forum. And so it just makes it easier to manage that way. So I hardly ever use mute because I don't sign up for anything that I don't want to be signing up for. And if I'm signing up for it, then I definitely want to know what's going on there. So in my case, I practically never use mute. But for you, it might be something you would use. Find emails. So this is a search, a built-in search basically here that allows you to say, okay, I'm looking at this message from well done. It says find emails from well done. So if I click on it, now it's going to show me all the messages I got from the same sender, which is very handy. I mean, definitely that could be definitely useful, and you can easily find certain things, and then you can right now I can select all of these because I don't really need them, and I could delete them, for example, if I wanted to do that. I could archive them. I could do all kinds of, assign a label to them. I mean, there's different things you can do, but it's a way to get to a bunch of messages, a group of specific messages very easily and quickly by using this capability. And then the other option they have is find emails with the subject. So you can find emails from a particular sender, and now you can also say find emails with the subject, and as you can imagine, it's only going to come up with one because all these messages usually have different labels. But if I go to something that I get all the time, like my Fred signups, and right-click on that and say find emails with the subject, then the subject is the same, so it's going to give me a ton of these people. Okay, and now I can assign a label to them if I wanted to. Remove a label, I could delete them, I could archive them. So there's all kinds of different things I could do with these people, or just look at them, look at all these messages and so on. So it's a very handy, for certain applications, it's a very, very handy option as well to be able to do that. And then finally, you have a way to go to a message and just simply open it in a new window. So when you look at a message like this, you can see it, there's only so much you can see, and if you want to make a little bit more room on the left, so you see a little bit more content on the left, then of course the content on the right becomes really dinky. So the way to solve that is if you go to select open a new window, then it opens up like this, and you can actually go full screen if you wanted to. So it's much, much bigger, much easier to work with, reply, print, whatever you want to do with the message, and then when you get done, you just close it. So it's a nice option. You always had it before. Again, none of these options are new except for the search being built in like this, which you could always do, search manually by just typing the same command. I mean, if I wanted to get messages from Mark Barras, I could just type in message from Mark Barras, for example, right there, and it's going to give me the same thing as that option that I showed you. If I wanted to type in message subject that has the word Fred in it, for example, then it would show me that. So it's not anything that complicated to do yourself, but it's a nice option to have, and it, for certain applications it might be very convenient to do these different things. So that's the right-hand menu. So what don't I like in this thing? What I don't like is if you have a message and you want to right-click somewhere, you get the usual, basically the usual Chrome capabilities. You have things like, let me pull up a different message. Things like copy link address, open link in incognito window. I mean, you got all these different Chrome options, which are nice. Okay, so that's totally perfect. But if I go to like one of my online food orders somewhere in here, let me find one. And we'll take yesterday's. Okay, so there is food order. What I need to do to be able to do a lot of times is I need to be able to go in and copy the email address. So my mouse is down here. Copy the email address. And the way I do that is I right-click and select copy email address. The problem is with this new Gmail release, as you see, it opened up the reply screen right here and put the email address already in it for me. And on one hand, I can see it being useful, because if you're going here, and if you're actually going to be clicking on the email itself, it's going to go right into reply, which makes perfect sense. I mean, that's wonderful. But if I'm right-clicking to get this menu, that doesn't necessarily mean I could be wanting to open this in a new tab. I could be open the link with something else. I could be wanting to copy email address, which is something I do. I could be sending it to Pushbullet. There's all these different things I could be doing, and they automatically assume I'm trying to send a reply back, which is definitely baloney. I'm not trying to send any replies. Typically, in some of the things I do business-wise, I want to copy email addresses because I want to put them in a database. And this doesn't let me do it easily. I mean, I can do it. I can still select the option, but now I have this screen, and if I go and simply say copy and do my stuff, and if I simply close the window, then as you can imagine, if I go to drafts, if I go to drafts here, well, they changed that. Cute. They changed this too. It used to be when you go to create a new message. No, that's this. Like, I'm creating a new message. I'm not putting anything into the content. Just we'll call it subject test. I'm not going to be sending it. I'm just going to be closing it. See right here, I'm going to close it, not sending it anymore. So if I do that, then as it used to be, as you can see, if I go to drafts, it shows me my test message right here, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. That's but excuse me. This is, by the way, how you can easily do set up all kinds of information that you want to have that you don't necessarily want to send anywhere, kind of like a little database. I got all kinds of different links things and some phone numbers, all kinds of different things that are useful for me that are stored in these drafts, and they never go anywhere. It's for me. So it's very convenient. But this other thing I was showing you, if we go to inbox, if I go to here, and if I go to my message again, where's my orders here? If I go to my order, and if I right-click, you can see it creates a new message, and it shows that. And so if I close this and go to drafts, yeah, it's not there. Okay, so the nuisance is, it's not as bad as I thought, but it's still kind of lousy, because as you can see, it doesn't create this new message in draft, which is good, because I don't want it to create a new message in draft. But I still need to close this extra window, which is extra click, which nobody needs, and it just basically wastes time. So if you want to be able to reply to messages, now you can, I guess, do it using either click or right-click. Either way, it's going to open up a reply window. But the good news, it's not going to go in drafts if you simply close it, whereby if you create a new message using Compose, it will go to drafts if you simply close it. So that's the difference in functionality. But that's only a situation with messages that have emails. If I go click on some other message, for example, like this one, and if I right-click here, as you can see, it shows me regular menu, and it doesn't jump into reply, any kind of reply situation. So the only time when this reply situation comes up is when you're clicking on a message that has email address in it. Yeah, email address in it. Like here, for example, if I right-click, see it jumps right into this screen. But I guess if you close it, then it doesn't go into drafts automatically. It's not there. Okay, so it's not as bad as I initially thought it was, but still definitely not a fan of people trying to help me protect me from myself. I mean, if I want to send a reply, I'll send a reply. So Google, if you're listening, change it, please, okay? If you right-click, that doesn't mean I want to send a reply. Okay, with the rant over now, let's move on to the next portion here. So one other thing that's very useful that a lot of people don't use is something in settings that allows you to go in and modify your keyboard shortcuts. And the way that works is if you go to advanced options here under settings, so we select settings then advanced, you can see there is a selection here called custom keyboard shortcuts. And it's either enabled or disabled. By default, they're disabled. So the first thing you need to do is enable them by clicking on enable, clicking on save changes, and then you'll have this keyboard shortcuts additional selection here under settings. And then you can see what they currently are, and you can change them to whatever you want them to be. So normally I wouldn't recommend messing with them too much because you know, they're already set up in a fairly decent manner. I do wish they had delete key be used for deleting messages as opposed to the pound sign, but you know, that's what it is here. And they have some ability to do multiple keys, like to go to start conversation, you hit G and then S. They do allow you to use alternate key sets here. So like example here, the focus last mole, as they call it, you can hit escape or you can hit shift escape. And so clearly they programmed it so you can do shift plus something, but the control is something I could not find. Like over here they have, for example, star A, which is select all conversations. And so the way that works, you hit control A. So I figured, okay, star A, or you know, deselect is control N. So I will try, you know, star in this alternate column, but that doesn't seem to work. So it's glitchy the way they have it set up. Buggy is a better word for it, but it does, most of it does work. You just can't do these additional keystrokes. But the one that I definitely would recommend is they used to have the I don't remember which key they used before, but there was no easy way to snooze using a keystroke, and I found that to be a little bit inconvenient because a lot of times you do want to snooze, and let's say we're looking at a message, and then I want to snooze this message, so the natural kind of thing is to use the S key. Unfortunately, they mapped the S key to another function, which I can't even tell you what it is. I don't remember, something I never used. So what I wound up doing is changing that to a different key that I don't use, and then changing the S key to be used for snoozing. So now if I hit the S key, as you can see, it comes up with snooze until, and I can change, you know, indicate when I want to snooze it until. So it's very convenient and very useful. So that's one thing I would recommend you do in terms of settings, is go to settings and under keyboard shortcuts, find snooze, which is towards the bottom, and then just simply change it to be the S, but make sure S is not used anywhere else. You know, change it to something or get rid of it completely, whatever it was before, and then you can put S here, and then make sure you save your changes. Initially, when I did this, it actually did not work, to my surprise. But then after doing the refresh in the browser on the Gmail, then it went ahead and made the change. And also I noticed that if I put some kind of or combination, that was this or this, a number of times it didn't seem to work. It would just use one but not the other. So it's not perfect in functionality, but at the same time, it's definitely doable to do at least that. And also, as I mentioned earlier, undo, which is very handy to use in all kinds of stuff dealing with emails, is something that they do have. Unfortunately, they don't allow you to use the standard Control Z, so it's set up to use the regular Z key somewhere in there. Let me see where it is here. Yeah, right there. So undo last action, as you can see right here, is set up to be Z, and works fine. You just hit the Z key and it works fine. Okay, so that's the special keys. You can look through all of them and change them if you want to use something else. You know, keyboard, since we do a lot of stuff on Gmail using keyboard, it makes sense to use keys for commands to be able to do things like, you know, some of the more useful ones are, you know, C for compose. Then you've got another one I use a lot is F for forward, pound sign for delete. That's not so obvious, but you know, R is for reply, A is for reply all. So not totally intuitive, but at the same time pretty pretty simple to do. So those are kind of the main ones. You can look through all of them. You know, there's a bunch of them that you may be using that would be handy for you. You know, / for search email, just as easy to just click in the search box. But a lot of other ones are definitely useful. So definitely use the special keys. And then another thing you can do is when you're sitting in Gmail and you don't remember what these keys are, you don't have to go to, you know, settings and keyboard shortcuts to see it. All you have to do is just simply hit the question mark. So it's shift / or question mark. And when you do that, it'll come up with the keyboard shortcuts. And as you can see at the top here, it shows all the keyboard shortcuts that are currently set up to use. You know, it shows you what the key is and what it does. So that's basically that. But at the same time, anything you set up as a special additional keyboard shortcuts, like I just showed you, then those you would see down below. And somewhere in there, I'm sure my snooze is in there. So there's Z to undo last action. And yeah, there is S for snooze. So it shows you the keys that you remapped or you changed. It shows you the right thing. So all you have to do is hit Shift, and then the key next to the Shift, right shift is question mark. Just hit that, and then you'll see this screen come up, and you can see what it is. And you can open it in a new window. So what? Hold on a second. That's weird. Okay. I guess you can't open it in your window. I thought it would open in a separate window, but I guess that's not an option here. It just opens up help for it. And then, of course, you can close it. So I think it's a bug. I think they should be showing you this in a separate window so you can keep it open, especially if you have something like I do where you have 2 monitors. Very handy to have those. Once you get used to some of the keys, you start using them, you don't really need to have the chart anymore because you know what they are. Okay, so then the final thing I want to talk to you about today is the situation with tasks. And this is something that very useful for a lot of different things. One of the main things you can do with tasks, and this is a little tasks icon right there on the right, and new Gmail now comes, you know, you have tasks ability to do tasks if you enable it. What you can do is, well, let's click on it to open it first. So you got all your tasks that are visible here. Okay. So one thing you can do easily with an email, you can click on any email, even if they're closed. It doesn't really matter. Click on email. If you hit Shift T for tasks, it's going to go ahead and drop that email into your tasks as one of the tasks. Notice it shows the same subject. Okay. And notice that what it also does, it puts in the link to your email itself right there in the same task. And so what you can do here is you can click on the Edit Details pencil, and then what I can do is I can change the description if I want. I'd recommend leaving it alone. But this details, you can add as much info as you wish here. So essentially, you can annotate your email, right? And then you can store that in either one list, one task list, as they call it. So, you know, the list is just a list of tasks. Or you can stick it in whichever one you want. You can have multiple lists. Like in my case, I have these 2 lists. Okay? So let's say, just for the sake of example, let's say I want to put this in a shopping list. All I have to do is just click on the shopping list, and it's going to store it there. I want to keep it in all these lists, I keep it there. So now it's just set up however many lists you want, and then you can put messages in your list this way. One other thing that is very useful for those that don't know is if you add a task, you can also add subtasks. And the subtasks are very handy because you want to, let's say you have an email that you're going to be putting in your task, something you're going to be doing, but you want to, there's few things that you want to be done associated with that email. Like perhaps you want to, somebody send you an email about your website, and you want to make sure you talk to the people about, you know, design, and then e-commerce integration, and then you want to talk to somebody about imagery choices, and then you want to talk to somebody about hosting. Okay, so let's say those are the things that you want to do as part of this conversation about this from this email. So you can create yourself a little reminders like this, which will show up in tasks now. So if I click on this email, it doesn't matter. I can close this. Doesn't matter where I'm at. But if I go to my tasks, let's actually be sitting on a different email here. And if I go to my task, there is the email reference I saved, right? And so if I click on edit, I can see all my comments I put in. I can see my subtasks there, okay? So all of this is visible. More importantly, I have the link. I can go right back to that email. If I don't remember what it is, it'll open it right up, right there. So it's very handy, very convenient that way. You don't need to worry about where it is because you can easily get to it. But the beauty is as I'm talking to different people about this, when I get done with talking to people about the design, I just click on design. Now design is gone from the list. And so I have this kind of to-do list is the easiest way to think about it. So think about being able to have an email that you need to take some actions, multiple tasks on to create for this email. And so you look and you create a subtask list of what needs to be done. And then as you go through and take care of it, you can just, without using any other tasking programs or anything else, you can do directly in that email by just clicking as you get these things done, and you're done. That's it. Of course, you can add additional things at any time, and so on and so forth. Okay? So very convenient, very handy to be able to do this kind of stuff. And then another thing that's also very convenient is ability to add a date, and that's kind of like a due date. So if you do that, let's say I have this date, and I'm going to put it on the 20th tomorrow. So now it shows that it's due tomorrow. The really convenient thing about it is if I go to my calendar, as you can see for tomorrow, I don't have anything. But if I refresh it, then we will see that there is right there an entry, new entry at the top of the calendar for tomorrow. And you can see that it's got a little task. It's got the color of the tasks right there. The color of the tasks. Let's change the color so it's a little more vivid. Since they're a task, let's make it orange. Yeah, much more visible that way. So the color is you can have the color of the task calendar, as they call it, be whatever you want. So it's going to show up. And by the way, these can be turned off by just clicking on the tasks on the left. But typically, I keep them on. And so you see your task show up on the date you specified. Means you need to do something about it. If you click on it, it's going to open up and it's going to show you it's today's date. There's the text that I put in there by details. You can add as much info as you wish. That's what I typed in. So you can see your annotation there. You can go and from the calendar and look at the related email there. Okay, and it shows you which list it's in. So if I click on view related email, it's going to go ahead and open up Gmail, and it's going to pop me right into that email that's associated with that task. So you can easily interface this way, both calendar and Gmail, to be able to do things based on dates. So you have one ability, which is snoozing, where you can put emails out of your face until a later date to be able to deal with them. So that's awesome, and it's built in right now, so you can use that. But in addition to that, you can create a task, because the snoozing, it just simply moves email in and out of your view. It doesn't do anything else. With the task, you actually have something that can go, if you wish, on your calendar. So number one, you're able to annotate emails using it by adding information there with using the task. Number two, you're able to, in addition to that, also reference a date, which then will show up on your calendar automatically. I mean, I did the refresh because it hasn't done the sync yet, but normally it does the syncs pretty quickly. So if I looked at it later, it would definitely be there automatically. It's not like you have to do the refreshing. I just wanted to show you quickly. So it does that as the next thing, is ability to see it and put it on your calendar. And then, of course, you can easily reference email, because if you put it in, obviously right now I did it from that email, so I know what the email is. I don't need to have any kind of special ability to go back to email. I know what it is. Problem is, if you start doing with a lot of emails, you have no idea. You have this calendar, you have all these different tasks that you put for yourself. You don't have any idea what these emails came from. Subject is not going to give you much information, and then you have to go search for it. I mean, it's a very inefficient and ineffective way to do it. So that's why you have the link to the original email, so you can easily get to it from either the calendar, or you can get to it from the tasks themselves here. and you can see the email, and then you can act on it. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, if you go to edit the details from the tasks here, you can also then add any number of subtasks, and you can have a little task list for that particular email. Keep in mind, we're still dealing with just a single email here, and we can have all this additional functionality. So I realize I'm kind of going through this stuff a little bit fast, and because of all this information, it might be for some a little bit maybe even overwhelming, or too much to take in at the same time. But if you really stop and think about it, and you can obviously see the video again, but it's a very, very useful ability to be able to have annotations for emails. I mean, I think it's a very handy way to do it. At the same time, you're able to create a task with integration to your calendar, which automatically populates your calendar, and then you can see it easily on that day. And then you're able to get to the email itself from the calendar by just simply clicking on the existing link. Very, very powerful. I mean, it's got a lot of very useful functionality. Once you kind of get it wrapped around your brain that you can do all these things with email, I think you'll see, especially for business use, there's a lot of things, additional things you might be able to do with just your emails than you've ever been able to do before. And this is very, very handy and very useful to be able to do this kind of stuff. So if you have any questions, or if you don't understand anything that I mentioned here, I'll be happy to clarify. Just grab me online somewhere, and I'll be happy to answer those. So that's essentially the new functionality in Gmail that has been added recently. With the new release, they have a better look. I didn't go into all the new Gmail features because I've done it in the prior video, but this latest release has to do with this right-click menu, and a lot of articles came out saying this is, Gmail is vastly improved and so on and so forth. Personally, I don't think it's a vast improvement. It's definitely nice, but it's not worthy to me to have all kinds of articles come out in all kinds of publications saying that there's this great thing going on with Gmail. The last improvement they did when they changed the look and feel, and they added the new tasks and everything else, that was a major, major Gmail improvement, which was worth jumping up and down about. This one is nothing that new. I mean, there's really nothing new with the right-click menu. Just they put a bunch of functionality they had before already, and instead of clicking on the button or selecting it from a pull-down menu, now it's in a single place. So again, it's nice. It's not mind-blowing. But these other features I mentioned, the ability to do things with tasks, with annotations, and the subtasks, it's something that people really don't talk about much when it comes to Gmail, but these are very useful features. And I thought, because we were talking about keystrokes, I thought it would be useful to show you how you can change some of the keys to do what you want to do, including like the snoozing that I did, which is very handy. Anyway, like I said, if you have any questions, definitely let me know. You can find me on MeWe. You can still find me on Google+, but I'm going to be leaving Google+, because Google+ is leaving me. So I'm still going to be on Google+ on the G Suite side, but mostly you're going to find me on MeWe. Thank you very much, and I will see you all soon. Take care.